Welcome to part 6 of the Bryan Brothers Football Manager 2018 experiment. As we approach the end of the Bryan Brothers careers, I hope you guys are still enjoying this experiment. It's been fascinating, I think. We've seen the Bryan Brothers win the World Cup for USA, of course. A couple of them have managed to win Champions League titles. All 4 of them have become basically the best players in the world in regards to current ability, that's for sure. And they've all had fantastic careers at big clubs. In this part 6, we're going to holiday until the Bryans are aged 35. So we might see 1 or 2 of them retire, but I suspect we won't because of the fact that we gave them 20 natural fitness, 1 injury proneness. In theory, they should be able to play until late 30s, early 40s, easily. Of course, we have already seen Trevor Bryan retire from international duty, so that might prolong his club career as well. So this is where we're at in June 2032. The players are 31 years old, and as you can see, current ability wise, it is still pretty ridiculous, isn't it? 200 for Trevor, 200 for Bryan, 199 for Ralph Bryan, and 198 for Nigel. He's actually dropped off 1 point, which I'm kind of surprised by. I'd have thought by this point Trevor and Bryan would kind of be declining slightly because they're the attacking players. And I thought that they would drop off before Ralph and Nigel. But we can't exactly call a drop off for Nigel going down to 198. That is still ridiculously good, and he'll still be the best centre-back in the world. I'm pretty sure of that. Let's take a look at the 4 brothers then. So remember, Trevor Bryan retired from international duty, ended up on 132 goals in 146 games for USA. What a brilliant goals to game ratio that is. He's had another phenomenal season with Chelsea, as you can see there. 45 goals in all competitions. I don't know if that's his best ever. 32 goals in the Premier League is very impressive, but I think, yeah, that is his best ever goal scoring season in all competitions. He did play 63 games this season though, so Chelsea did play a lot of games, but they didn't win the title this year. They haven't managed to win it for 2 seasons now. Man United finished 2 points ahead of them. It really has been a brilliant battle between those 2 clubs in particular. Bryan versus Trevor Bryan, of course. Bryan not featuring on the top 3 assists for the first time in a while, but he does get the 2nd best average rating, 2nd best man of the match, but behind his brother Trevor. But remember, Bryan has won Champions League titles. Bryan, Manchester United legend, worth £62 million. I do believe he's retired from international duty as well, on 149 caps. 40 goals, so he did actually get 3 more caps than his brother. But as you can see, I think Nigel's retired as well, because Ralph Bryan's the only brother on that list, so that must be the case. Nigel, Trevor and Bryan have retired from international duty. Ralph Bryan keeps going. He's got less caps than his brothers, but he could end up with a lot more if he continues to play for many years to come. He's certainly much better than the other goalkeeping options available to USA, but that will be detrimental to USA's chances of ever winning another World Cup. I think I see that highly unlikely for the rest of this save. Once again, very good season from Bryan. Of course, he managed to win the league title with Manchester United, so be very pleased about that. Ralph Bryan still playing for Leipzig, 125 caps for his country, like I said, worth £55 million, and all good season. Only 24 league goals conceded this season, 21 clean sheets in all competitions. Did they win the league for the first time in a couple years? No, they've not won it for 4 seasons now, in fact. They finished 2nd this time, 19 points behind Bayern Munich, so they really are dominating. All those draws let them down by the looks of it. But he's still having a fine old time in Germany, but I would like to see him move to either an English big team or Spanish big team. That would be nice to see. Nigel Bryan still playing for PSG, finished on 144 caps and 10 goals, so 2 less than Trevor and 5 less caps than Bryan. But in terms of competition wins, he's probably won the most competitions in his career because he's playing for the dominant PSG, who just win everything. And of course, he has won a couple Champions League titles as well, but multiple league titles in a row. Best average rating this season as well from the centre, but really impressive stuff. And in fact, Manchester United have managed to win the Champions League for a 2nd season in a row, and Bryan gets another one up on Chelsea. They beat them 3-0 in the final. Another one up on his brother, Trevor, 2 seasons in a row. That is so harsh on Trevor, because he quite clearly has been the best player on this save statistically. The number of goals he scored, his average rating is ridiculous every year. Gets assists as well, but he just can't seem to win that Champions League title. And of course, Nigel has won twice, but Bryan leads the way now with 3 Champions League titles to his name after beating Chelsea for the 2nd season in a row in the final. Really unfortunate for Chelsea, and it was a dominant win. Bryan didn't actually play though. He must have been injured, which is a rarity. I can't see him there. So perhaps, I mean, technically he would get a Champions League title, because if he takes part in the group stages and the other stages of the competition, then he would get a medal. But on the game, it doesn't always show on their name. If we just go to Manchester United and look at Bryan, still Phil Neville in charge, by the way. If we look at competitions, it doesn't show that he won it, even though obviously he was part of that squad. I'm surprised that he was injured, because they've got such low injury proneness, but these are all the injuries they've had in 14 years, and most of them have been very minor or slight, as you can see. So every player gets slight injuries regardless of the injury proneness being really low. But as you can see here, 3-week injury, which is current, meant he missed the Champions League final, which is a real shame. But just imagine, he has won his 3rd Champions League title. It just doesn't show on the game, annoyingly. He's only ever got one major injury, which was for 6 weeks, as you can see there. So even players with 1 injury proneness will pick up knocks, because that's just part of life. You know, they will get slight injuries in training and after games, and it's just very, very small. Let's just have a look at the injuries of the other players. So Trevor's actually picked up 2 major injuries in his 14-year career, 15-year career. 5 weeks and 5 weeks, but they're not massively major, are they? They're not months out. Everything else is very minor, under a week generally. Ralph Bryan, a goalkeeper, probably won't pick up many. Yeah, he's certainly picked up less. He did get a broken hand though, was out for 5 weeks. But everything else, apart from a couple moderate and 2 minor, was slight injuries, which they just don't count. Like, one was a stubbed finger for saving the ball, which is quite funny, but it happens to goalkeepers, doesn't it? And then Nigel, I clicked on the wrong thing. Injuries. He's similar to Bryan really. 1 major injury, which was 4 weeks. Everything else, he's certainly got more moderate injuries than the others, I think. You know, a couple weeks here and there. But that's intriguing actually, because I was thinking there might literally be no injuries because they've got 1 injury proneness, but they still can pick up knocks every now and then. So I've holidayed until June 2033. All 4 of them are now 32 years old, and as you can see, Bryan has sustained himself at 200 current ability, but Trevor has dropped down to 196, so I think he's starting to decline ever so slightly. Of course, he's still an incredible player, still scored 37 goals in all competitions this year, but Bryan has maintained himself at 200. Ralph's at 199, and Nigel's actually gone back up to 199 in the past season. So let's start with Bryan for the first time in the series. Here he is, still incredible. 18 passing, 18 vision. That does seem to fluctuate between 17 and 18 quite a lot. Did he manage to win the league title again with Man United? Let's have a look in a second. But you can see 16 goals this season, 26 assists. Oh, what a player he is. And Premier League wise, they managed to win it for the 2nd season in a row. Chelsea dropped all the way down to 4th place, and Trevor Bryan for the first time isn't the out and out top goal scorer. He had to share that accolade with this chap from Swansea this year, who was in England in 1 goal in 8 games for England. He's not even a top quality England international, but Trevor Bryan still top goal scorer technically, just he had to share the accolade this year. In fact, he probably finished 2nd in terms of games played, so wouldn't have won the Golden Ball. He got the most man of the match awards though, easily, and also easily the highest average rating ahead of Bryan, who got the 3rd highest number of assists this season. But wow, Trevor's still dominating the statistics, really, isn't he? But Bryan is the best player out of his brothers. We'll have a look at the Ballon d'Or in a second as well. Ralph now has 138 caps for USA, still playing in Germany. Let's have a look. Have they won the league, or is it Bayern Munich again? It's Bayern Munich again, of course. He needs to move. They've dropped down to 4th place. I want him to move to a different team. It'd be nice to see all of them move. Just have one last glorious move to a different team and see how they get on. Nigel back up to 199 current ability. As pretty much, surely they've won the league again. Yeah, they have. He didn't get the highest average rating this season, but you can see 101 points. They're just so dominant, especially with Nigel at the back. I mean, they're known for their attacking players, aren't they? But with Nigel at the back, they're going to be stopping most people getting past him as well. He's still very pacey for a 32-year-old centre-back as well. What a player he is. And lastly, Trevor, who has declined slightly. His value's gone down. All the value's gone down for the 4 players because they're getting older. But still scored 37 goals this season, 17 assists, and 23 man of the match awards. He got the same average rating as last year in the Premier League as well. 8.19 in all. He is ridiculous. So consistent as well, I think. Champions League-wise, Nigel has managed to win his 3rd Champions League to stay in line with Brian. And I presume he played in the final. Let's have a quick look. In fact, they beat a fellow French team, Lyon. And Nigel Bryant, man of the match in the final. So he's actually managed to pick up 3 titles according to the game. But remember, Brian he's really won 3 because he played in the group stages and all the knockout rounds apart from the final. But Brian, what a performance to win them his 3rd Champions League medal, and they've won about 5 on this save, I think. Ballon d'Or then. So we've had a different winner this year, but last year Brian managed to win it for the 4th time. Sorry. So Trevor Bryan's won it 1, 2. Ooh, is that 3 times? I'm just trying to count. I'm getting all confused with all the Bryans everywhere. So Trevor Bryan's won it 3 times, but Brian has now managed to move ahead of his brother and win it for a 4th time. Last season, Mbappe was 3rd. I feel sorry for Trevor because look at his average rating. It's better than Brian, but Brian's the one that's getting the votes, I guess. But this season, it's a 33-year-old. It's not even a young player. It's a real-life player, in fact. He's a real-life player. 34 years old now. German, 144 caps. Plays for Manchester City. What's his current ability? It's only 166. But he managed to finish ahead of Trevor Bryan and Brian, despite his average rating being very low. But it must be all those assists he got, I'm guessing, that helped him win it for Manchester City. We've not seen a Spanish team win it since Messi in 2020. It's all been basically English teams apart from Mbappe for PSG a couple years. Is it the same case for Footballer of the Year? No, it's not. Trevor Bryan did actually manage to win his 4th Footballer of the Year, which is level with Brian, instead of Kai Havertz. And then World Player of the Year, it's the German again. So Trevor's slightly behind Brian now with these awards, interestingly. Oh, Ralph Bryan's finally featured. He finished 2nd this year, despite playing for Leipzig, which I thought was holding him back. And Monaco goalkeeper managed to win it this year. But it's good to see Ralph on that list. It would be nice to see him finally win that award one day. Is he in World Team of the Year as a result? Let's go back. No, why is he not in World Team of the Year? But he was 2nd place. In that he should be on the bench, I think, but he's not. The Bryans are now 33 years old, and as you can see, Trevor is really declining at a rapid rate. I suppose he was the most likely player to decline first because he's the attacking player, he's the striker, and that's often the case with strikers or wingers, that they don't have as such a prolonged career. Midfielders can play for a long time. Of course, we've seen Pirlo in recent years, and Carrick is still playing, for example, for Manchester United. Maybe not as good as they were, but I mean, Pirlo did play very well for a long time, didn't they? And Xavi, Iniesta's still going, of course. But Brian, to stay at 200 current ability at the age of 33 is phenomenal. And in the last episode, I'm going to ask you guys who was the best player. And you could argue, if Brian can keep this up for another year or so, that even though Trevor probably put in the better performances between the ages of 18 to 31, that drop-off might let him down come the end of the series if Brian can keep going for another couple of years. Because Trevor's just going to go down now. He's not going to go back up again. Whereas Brian can still sustain himself. Still worth £30 million at the age of 33. And had another brilliant season. 20 assists in the Premier League, 22 in all competitions, 16 goals in all competitions. Manchester United win it for a 3rd year in a row. But Trevor Bryan, top scorer once again. And he's always been top goal scorer since he moved to Chelsea. Obviously joint last year, which is the one blip. But that is just incredible. So at the same time, even though Trevor has dropped off, he's still scoring goals, getting the highest average rating. Not quite as big a distance between him and Brian this time. And the most man of the match awards. my player of the series so far is Trevor. That might change come the end. I mean, if Ralph plays to the age of 45 and gets 300 caps for USA, then maybe my mind will change. But I feel like Trevor's the best player of the series. He's just missed out on Champions League titles basically because Chelsea have let him down, I think, on the whole. Whereas Manchester United overall have the better squad, and Brian has been able to win multiple awards. But he is an incredible player. I mean, to stay at 200 is just unbelievable, really. Nigel's next. He's still on. He's on 198. He's dropped one. Sorry, Ralph's dropped by 2. Both of them never got to 200, and they never reached that mark. But they might have done mid-season and then dropped off again. I don't know if that's possible. But yeah, Nigel, I'm pretty sure he's won a league title again. Let's have a look. Yep, they did, and they got 102 points this year, one more than last time, and he got the highest average rating. Excellent stuff. Ralph Bryan, still playing in Germany for Leipzig. 153 caps now. So he is ahead of his brothers in regards to international caps, which is incredible. He's worth £38 million. His value will stay high for a longer period of time because he's a goalkeeper. And as you can see there, 42 goals conceded in all competitions, 21 clean sheets in 48 games. That's not bad going whatsoever. And they've managed to win the league again, so perhaps he was right to stay. They finished ahead of Schalke on goal difference and beat Bayern by 1 point. So they didn't even get that high a points tally this time round. But it was enough for them to win, is it their 3rd league title? Yes. So well done to Ralph, managing to win a 3rd Bundesliga. And lastly, Trevor, who's still banging in the goals for Chelsea. 34 goals in all competitions, 25 in the league, 15 assists, 22 man of the match awards. His average rating has gone down. It's the first time he's finished below 8 since 2026-27 season. That is just phenomenal. I don't understand how he's done that. Oh, the Champions League was won by Manchester City. They beat Man United in the final. What a final that is. It was played in Bucharest, of all places. Let's have a look at that then. So Brian featuring in another final, I presume. He did. 7.2 was subbed off in the 81st minute. But Manchester City were too strong for them and managed to turn it around after Man United took the lead in the 9th minute. They didn't play particularly well looking at it statistically, had slightly more possession. But that was enough to beat Man United. Their manager is currently Unai Emery. Obviously, it's all regens now, really, isn't it? But yeah, we've not really seen Man City dominate on this, but they have finally managed to win the Champions League. So it's now the year 2035. We're a long way into the future, and the players are now 34 years old, and we have seen Brian drop off, but he's still at 194 current ability. Nigel's at 193, Ralph's at 192, and Trevor's at 180. They're still all world-class players at the age of 34. We've got one more season, this season and one more season to look at in this part 6 today. But all the players still playing for the same clubs that they've been at for basically a decade now, over a decade in Brian's case. Still a very good performance from him this year, but certainly not as good as previous years in regards to average rating. But 23 assists in all competitions, 12 goals, really not bad going at all. Did they maintain themselves? No. And wow, Stoke finished up in 2nd place. Man City won the league, Man United finished 3rd, and Chelsea finished 4th. But Trevor, he's not even in the top 3 goal scorers. There's 3 players that got 17 goals. Trevor's dropped out of the top average rating, but he's still got the most man of the match awards, and he actually got more assists than Brian this season, strangely enough. Let's just have a look at goals then. Where was he? He's down in 6th place. He only got 15 goals, but there was it's really kind of, he's the 2nd top goal scorer because there was actually 5 players, that scored 17. So yeah, but what's happened? Maybe he's turned into more of a creative player this season. We'll have a look at Chelsea and their tactics in a second. Maybe he's playing out on the wing. But Manchester City, they won the league. 3 points ahead of Stoke City, who have got Pochettino in charge. 4.5-star reputation team, rich. So they've obviously had something happen to them. You might have noticed them previously playing really well. I don't know, maybe in previous years they've started to creep towards the top of the table. But yeah, well done to Stoke City for that. Manchester United, their captain is still Brian, and the key player is still Brian. But Lucas Leiva is in charge of the club now, which is really random. And Liverpool, is he a Liverpool legend? He played for Liverpool for many years. Going to Manchester United, it's a bit strange. This is the team, but it wasn't good enough to win the league this time round for the 4th season in a row. Chelsea, now with Luis Enrique in charge. How long has he been there a while? I feel like he might have been. No, he's not. Only a year. We've seen him at a different club previously, I think. But Trevor Bryan is their captain and key player, but for whatever reason didn't score as many goals this season. But he was playing up front, according to this, and he did score 32 goals in all competitions. He just wasn't so prolific in the league, which is interesting. So yeah, let's move on to Nigel then. Playing for PSG, only worth £8 million now that he's 34 years old. Did they win the league title again? Silly question. Of course they did. And not as good this year, 92 points, but still way ahead of their nearest rivals, Lyon. Nigel Bryan, third highest average rating there, as you can see. Ralph, still playing for Leipzig, but still getting caps for USA as well. 162 caps for his country. Jefferson Mena, a Colombian, is now in charge. He's still the best player in USA. I mean, that's not hard really, because the next best player is 136 current ability, so he's going to be the best player for a long time. There is another goalkeeper that's managed to pick up a couple caps, but he is easily the #1 goalkeeper and still worth £26.5 million. Did he win the league title? Very, very good average rating, by the way. Yes, he did. 2nd year in a row. So, yeah. 1 point ahead of Dortmund. He's been right to stick it out with Leipzig and win another league title. I just want him to have a shot at a Champions League, and I don't think he's going to do that with Leipzig. But a really good season from him once again. Trevor Bryan, he may have dropped off in current ability and in his Premier League performance this year in regards to goals. His average rating is still very high, but yeah, he is declining. But still managed to score 32 goals this season in all competitions. 9 goals in 5 starts and 4 sub-appearances in the Cup, by the way. So obviously doing really well there. And 8 goals in the continental football. 17 assists, 17 man of the match awards as well. So still a top quality player. And 3 of them are now earning $325 a week, by the way. Ralph Bryan's the lowest earner, but still an incredibly rich man. Manchester United have regained their... Oh my, not again. This is so annoying for Trevor. They beat Chelsea in the final game, and this time on penalties. Bryan picks up his 4th Champions League medal. Nigel's got 3. Ralph and Trevor have 0, but Trevor's reached 3. In fact, he's reached 4 finals now, and he's missed out every single time, and that is just so harsh on Trevor. I feel sorry for him, I really do, because he's worked his heart out for Chelsea. He's scored so many goals for them. He must easily be their all-time top goal scorer. And let's have a quick look actually. He must be, surely. All-time top goals. Yes, 333 goals. It only shows league goals, but he obviously is the highest scoring player ever for Chelsea. But at the same time, he just can't deliver a Champions League for them. You could say maybe it's on his shoulders because he's the striker. He should be scoring the goals in the final. And maybe he's bottled it a bit in finals. Of course, World Cup final, he got injured. It's not really his fault though, is it? But he's missed out again. 6.6 performance from him. It wasn't great on the day for him. Bryan 7.2. 3 chances created, 1 key pass. But he did miss a penalty. And of course, Chelsea didn't have Bryan on the pitch to take the penalties. So, yeah, really, really unfortunate in that regards. But they miss out yet again, and Manchester United and Bryan win their 4th Champions League. So it's the last season of this part 6 today. There's going to be one more part to this experiment where we're holiday until all 4 players have retired. But they're all still going at the age of 35. But you can see Trevor's dropped to 169 current ability now, still a quality player. But scored less goals, much less goals, 13 goals, 1 assist. They might have replaced him with a better player now, I suppose. But he's still playing lots of games, but perhaps he's playing on the wing. We'll investigate that in a second. Bryan's still the best player, 186. Nigel not far behind on 185, and Ralph on 184, still playing for Leipzig. But he's unhappy. He's requested a move, interestingly. But let's start with Bryan. We'll also have a look at all the competitions and Ballon d'Or before we end today's video. So Bryan, what a player. Still at the age of 35. His passing's actually gone up to 19. That's something that can be improved upon in older age. History then, let's have a look at this then. So still a very good season, but he is dropping off, as you can see there. If we have a look at the Premier League. Man City have won it for a second season in a row, but they did finish second this year, ahead of Stoke on goals scored, I'm supposing. Chelsea 1 point behind them, really unlucky. But yeah, Trevor's not featuring on that list, on anywhere now, but Brian's still the second best average rating. This seems to be the player, the star player in the Premier League these days. Lassina Sanogo, a Frenchman, who's banging in the goals and getting the highest average rating. The era of Trevor is finally over. It really, I just want to go back here and look at the awards winners for Golden Boot. Top goal scorer, for example. Look at this. I mean, every year up until 2033, when he was joint top goal scorer, it's just he played a couple more games than Danny, which is why Danny Stockhill got the Golden Boot. But he won it the year after with 25 goals, remember. But the last 2 years, it's been all about Sanogo, and Trevor's completely vanished off the scene. Let's just have a look at a few other things then. Footballer of the Year. So it was a battle between Trevor and Brian for a few years, but Trevor has won more overall. Brian, in fact, how many has Brian won? He's won 1, 2, 3, 4. Trevor's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 awards. Both of them haven't featured in the last couple of years. Let's go back to Brian then and have a look at his milestones, have a look at his competitions wins. So they did win the FIFA Club World Cup at the end of 2035, but they haven't won anything, you know, a major competition since that Champions League last year. So they didn't win anything this year. FA Cup winners in 2035. Now remember, Chelsea dominated this competition for a while, but in recent years it's been the Manchester clubs swapping around every year. Oh my days, Chelsea, Trevor, poor old Trevor, he's lost 3 finals in the FA Cup in recent years as well, but to be fair, he has won quite a few FA Cups with Chelsea earlier on in his career, so it's not so bad, but they just bottle it in finals now, Chelsea. Trevor needs to have one final hurrah at a different club, I think, and just see what he can win. What an unbelievable career for Brian. It is ridiculous. There's been a few people wanting me to upload the save files at the end of this. I might upload the start, the first save file before everything starts, and then at the end, and maybe upload the database to the Steam Workshop as well. Let me know if you're interested in that. Let's move on to Nigel, sorry, he's the second best player at the moment, still playing for PSG. Things are starting to go down a bit. Not really the mentals though, they do tend to stick around and sometimes improve later on in careers as well. But even he has to admit that he's getting on a bit, but still managed to feature his third best average rating this season and easily won the league with PSG. Remember, he's won multiple Champions Leagues, of course. He's won 3 Champions League titles, I think. He's won the Coupe de France again this year. I don't know how many times they've won that, but quite a few times, as you can see there in his career. And the Coupe de la Ligue as well. I think they won the treble this year, by the looks of it. Very impressive. They've won that multiple times as well. He's definitely won the most competitions, I think. Surely he's won more than anyone else. He must have done. Phenomenal stuff. Ralph Brian then, still playing for Leipzig, still worth pretty high amount of money at the age of 35, £16 million. Will he just stay here till the end of his career now? Maybe. Did he win the Bundesliga this year? No, it's returned to Bayern Munich and they finished second. Oh, look at that. 81 points, 48 plus goal difference. It must be goals scored or head-to-head performance, which is really unlucky, isn't it? That's really unlucky. That was last year. This year, goals scored. Bayern Munich scored 4 more goals this season. That is harsh on Leipzig, but that's just the rules. So let's look at Ralph's history, competition-wise. So he has managed to win 3 Bundesligas, but he's certainly not won as many competitions as his brothers, has he? That's quite clear to see. Been runners-up in quite a few things as well. But he's still had a great time in Germany. Trevor Brian, lastly then, he really is dropping off. He's only worth £7 million now. He's still earning 325k a week with 1 year left on that contract. But maybe he's not going to be the main man now. Only 11 Premier League goals, 13 goals in all competitions, only 1 assist. He's not helping his teammates as much as he did recently, in recent years, and well, for his whole career really. And his average rating certainly dropped off. But he's had an incredible career. I just feel so... Look at that. Runners-up in every single competition, every single final since 2031. They won the FA Cup in 2031. Ever since then, he's been runners-up in 3 Champions Leagues and 3 FA Cups, and even the Community Shield and Carabao Cup he was runners-up in, which is just really, really hard on him. You can see, oh, it was the Carabao Cup that Chelsea dominated. He won 5 times of them. I think he joined at this point. But since then, they've not managed to win it in, well, 9 years. Stoke have managed to win it 3 times. So it's been a mixed career for Trevor. It really has. But overall, one of the best players ever to grace the game, I'm sure. I mean, that's what he'll go down in history as being one of the greatest ever players. I just want to have a look to see if they did play him up front a game. No, they played him on the wing, which is obviously why he didn't score as many goals this season. So that answers that question. They're playing this chap, Alexis Abengoza, Spanish, 21 goals in 22 games. Wow, he looks good. Let's have a quick look. Oh, he's got 192 potential. Could potentially be one of the best players ever, alongside Trevor Bryan. Oh, and by the way, Phil Neville has become manager of Chelsea, which is quite funny, really. Let's have a look then. I think we know won the Champions League. Man City, maybe we didn't know that. They beat Atletico Madrid in the final. Europa League wise, West Ham managed to win the most recent one. Stoke have been very successful in this competition as well. Let's look at Ballon d'Or just to see what has happened in recent years. So Trevor and Bryan have still managed to win Ballon d'Or awards at the end of their career, because we saw the German win it back in 2032, but then the next season, a resurgence from Trevor Bryan, winning it in 2033 at the age of 32 after getting 34 goals and 17 assists. We didn't see Bryan feature at all that season, but Bryan returned to the top at the age of 33 with Trevor Bryan not featuring at all. And then just this season gone, we've seen them all disappear. What a name this is, by the way, Wayne Wolverton. That is brilliant. This is the guy that won the most recent Champions League title. So I don't think we're going to see Trevor or Bryan win it again. Pretty much certain Trevor won't. But he's managed to win 1, 2, 3, 4 Ballon d'Ors, whereas Bryan has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he has won this. He has managed to pip Trevor to the post on this one. But Footballer of the Year, different. Trevor's managed to win 5, and so is Bryan. So that's equal. In recent years, you can see Bryan was top. Trevor did actually finish second in this award. I don't know why it differs so much. I guess some of them are voted by journalists, some of them are voted by the players. And World Player of the Year, and there's 3 different ones. It's just confusing. Trevor Bryan also managed to win those ones as well. Goalkeeper of the Year, we still haven't seen Ralph. He finished second 1 year back then, but in the last 3 seasons he hasn't managed to feature, which is a bit frustrating for him. I think Trevor Bryan's probably dropped off the Team of the Year as well. Bryan's still featuring though, as you can see there. Trevor hasn't been, he was on the bench last year. Let's look at the overall though. So overall, Nigel Bryan's there, Bryan's there, and Trevor Bryan playing on the left wing with Suarez up front, interestingly. Portugal won the most recent World Cup, by the way. They beat Morocco in the final. Morocco did really well to get through to a final there. Unlucky to lose against Portugal in the final 3-0. USA currently 34th in the world rankings. They have dramatically declined since 3 of the Bryan brothers have retired from international duty. Last 4 seasons, real big drop off. Ralph still playing. He's got 177 caps. Is he going to reach 200? I hope so, because although he has finished behind his 3 brothers in regards to competitions won, he's never had a shot at the Champions League. Trevor may have lost 3 finals, but at least he's had a shot at it. Ralph has never had that, but he can make up for it by becoming an American legend and being the all-time capped player. In fact, he might already be. Let's have a quick look. He is. Oh no, that's top goal scorer. Trevor Bryan, top goal scorer. Where's no? He's level with Michael Bradley. 1 more cap, and he's going to be the most capped American ever for the men's soccer team. Wow, that is very impressive, Ralph. I'm sure he's going to at least get 1 more cap before retiring. So I think we'll end it there for part 6. Thank you for watching this experiment so far. We're going to have 1 more part 7, where we're going to holiday until all the players are retired. I'm interested to see in part 7 if Ralph can reach 200 caps. I think Trevor will probably be the first to retire. He's just going to accept that he's not at the very top anymore, and rather than dropping down the leagues, I think he will probably retire, whereas the others I think will keep going for a while. Bryan's still going strong, as is Nigel and Ralph. And Ralph can probably play till his mid-40s if he really wanted to. But we shall see in part 7. Until next time, enjoy FM18, and I'll see you very soon.